Thanks for joining us for Khari Free at Last on Bounce 23 TV. I'm Khari Naharo. Mass incarceration resulting from the war on drugs has had a devastating impact on African-American males. The United States incarcerates a higher percentage of black men than South Africa did at the height of racial apartheid. Joining me is TalkTainmentRadio.com host Earth Jallow, Donella Martin Braddock, and the Reverend John Coates. Mass incarceration, Reverend Coates. I know you've dealt with people who've gone to, chaplain. You've dealt with a lot of issues. What's going on here?
Well, what's happening is that black men are being arrested in America and they're being sentenced to prison. They're going to jail at an unproportionate rate. And it's something that our community should be concerned about.
But the war on drugs was designed to eliminate all of the crack cocaine on the corner, all of the violence. I mean, what else are we supposed to do?
I'm so happy you mentioned crack specifically, because throughout the United States, there's been disparity between crack cocaine sentencing and regular powder cocaine sentencing. In fact, in Ohio, we just had this balanced out. Thank you, Governor John Kasich, for pushing it through the House and the Senate so that there would be equal amount of sentencing. You would go to jail for a longer period of time for having the same amount or less amount of crack cocaine than what people that would go to jail for powder cocaine.
Donella Martin Braddock, what is the war on drugs if it's not designed to eliminate crack cocaine and murder and all these other problems?
Well, it seems the war on drugs is a program designed to take away the rights of black men. Here we have in America today, in the year 2013, 1 in 13 black men cannot vote for life. And it's due to this unfair sentencing.
Well, wait a minute, who told them to sell drugs?
Well, it's like Pastor Coates said, if you have 499 grams of powder cocaine,
who told you to sell
you get a
drugs?
shorter sentence than if you are caught with 5 grams of crack in over 25 states.
Who told you to sell drugs when they didn't have a job available for you?
You couldn't cut the grass? You couldn't shovel the snow?
Well, what happens
You couldn't learn carpentry?
There's several things happening. There's several things that's going on. Society tells us through media that I must have this, and the other thing in order to be successful. So in order to garner the income that I need, a lot of people turn to the underground economy in order to make that type of money.
Oh, come on. That's horrible justification.
Come on,
How do you justify somebody selling drugs to children? So, I mean, all of our children now are addicted to this mess at the elementary and at the middle school level. How in God's name are you going to stand up and protect people who do this, Earth Jallow?
I don't see my elementary school students or my junior high school students addicted to crack cocaine, Khari. I'm sorry, I haven't seen that at the schools that I'm in. But
whoa! Then you're not on top of data. We get data every day that young people are using marijuana, they're using crack cocaine, they're using cocaine. Yet, Reverend, am I lying about that?
They're smoking cigarettes and marijuana. And that's not, talk about prescription drugs that they're being prescribed to, such as the Ritalin, and then we find out that they're on heavier drugs later on.
But we've got these thugs running around selling drugs in our community, and y'all want to protect them.
But before you
you want to be soft on crime.
We don't want to
Let's be clear. It's not about justifying people's illegal activities. What it is about is ensuring that the sentences are equal, and we're not talking about cruel and unusual punishment.
And the fact that privatization of prisons, they want to keep the prison beds full.
Well, what's the number one way to keep them prisons from being full? Stay out of prison.
Yeah, but there's factors that go into that.
To stay out of prison, yes, the number one way is to provide alternatives for young men so that they don't turn to crime or tempted to turn to crime in the first place.
4%.
Oh, the bleeding heart.
Yes,
give me a break.
4% of African Americans are drug users. 37% are arrested for drug-related crimes.
What's your data source?
That's a problem with that.
What's your data source?
The New Jim Crow.
New Jim Crow what?
It's a book, Michelle Alexander.
And what's her data source?
I don't know. She wrote the book.
Well, see,
Shall we ask her?
That's the problem. You know what I mean? Just
At least she did it. At least she did it, and she is us doing the research for us. She looks like us.
Donnella Martin Braddock, you are trying to coddle these criminals.
Not at all. Not at all. Anybody who knows me knows I am not into coddling. I'm into fair sentencing. You have situations due to the mandatory minimum sentencing laws and the 3 strikes law that were enacted largely during the Clinton administration, believe it or not. You've got people who are in prison for life for stealing a pizza.
That's right.
So President Obama turned that around, didn't he, Reverend Coates?
Oh, no, President Obama did. No, he did not. He didn't do. President Obama co-signed.
What do you mean he co-signed?
He co-signed on it. He said, oh, that looks good to me. We're not going to address it. In fact...
I tell you what, stay right there. Woo! $7 million in jail. Up next on Khari, Free at Last. Welcome back to Khari, Free at Last. 30 years ago, before the war on drugs, 300,000 people in prison. Today, 7 million are in prison on probation or parole for selling or using drugs. Joining me is TalkTainmentRadio.com host Irv Jallo, Donnella Martin Braddock, and the Reverend John Coates. 7 million, Reverend Coates.
7 million, but it's not all drug related. It's not all drug related. People are going. No, people are going to jail.
I didn't say black people.
Yes,
I said people in general.
People in general are going to jail because of poverty. Okay? Black women, white women go to jail for writing bad checks.
No.
Or prescription meds.
All right, so what are you telling me? That's the 300,000. Since the war on drugs, there's a correlation there, Reverend.
Certainly.
Since the war on drugs, it went from 300,000 to 7 million, either in prison or on parole or et cetera. Something wrong with that number, Donnella?
Right, and 2/3 of those who are imprisoned or on probation or parole, therefore drug offenses.
Right.
Including things such as, stealing for drugs, and I'm not condoning it by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh, you're not coddling the...
Absolutely not.
Shouldn't we try to find a treatment for these people instead of locking them up? If you are addicted to drugs, then it doesn't matter if you're going to be locked up. When you get out, you're going to do the same thing over and over. It's a repetitive cycle.
The treatment is an improved economy. When the economy is depressed, people become depressed and then they self-medicate.
Absolutely.
They look for a means of escape, and that escape is through the crack cocaine and the heroin.
And poverty and undereducation also comes with selling drugs.
Who has it benefited the most to put 7 million people in jail for primarily nonviolent offenses? Who has it benefited?
Private prison owners, the prison system, the privatization of prisons. So if I own a prison, or Bob Barker, who makes everything in the prison, he benefits.
Bob Barker?
Bob Barker, he makes the jumpsuits, he makes a whole lot of
you
materials.
talking about from the television shows?
Yes, I am. From The Price is Right.
Wait, that's a Bob Barker?
Bob Barker.
Come on down.
Yes.
Johnny.
Come on down.
Come on down.
Yes. He's telling you to come on down and fill his beds in his private prison. He is the one. People like him are the ones who benefit generationally.
How big is the private industry system? And how has it benefited Donnella Martin Braddock?
Well, not only are the prisons benefiting, but also the individual and local precincts. Due to a law that was enacted, the cars, the houses, the money that they seize, they get to keep 80% of those assets. So they're very interested in, everybody's profiting from the drug trade.
So it's stimulating the economy.
Absolutely.
So the new court buildings can be built like we see in Columbus.
Absolutely.
New police can be
police cars.
New cars can be. So who's pimping this system,
Well,
John?
first of all, the largest budget in any municipality is safety. And a lot of that isn't going to fire trucks, my friends. It's going to police and to police-oriented apparatuses. Who benefits from it? Well, we have the military-industrial complex, but then we have the prison industrial
Break
complex.
that down for us.
We're about to see a shift take place in our society. You have all of these men and women that are incarcerated. We're about to see them be implemented into a new workforce in the United States of America. And
definitely.
I call it what it is.
16 cents a day.
It's slavery. That's exactly. It is slavery. You take these people out of society, you put them into a controlled environment, and then you put them to work for pennies or for nothing at all.
Yep.
7 million.
Yeah.
Good
And now
God Almighty.
making them pay for their own incarceration. Now they have to pay room and board. They're enacting that and pushing it all across America.
So what you're saying is not only are they enslaving the people, creating a bad economy, this is a setup.
Yes.
Well,
Wait a minute. Wait, if it's a
setup.
setup, why we keep falling in the trap?
Well, some states aren't. In Ohio, for
No,
instance,
you ain't answering the question. James Brown.
we fall
Trying to slide.
We fall into the trap because we don't know. We either don't have the information or we don't have time to deal with it. When you're struggling and trying to live and pay your bills and survive day in and day out, you have less time to be an advocate.
You don't know right from wrong. Is that what you tell me? You tell me a grown adult does not know to go out and rob a bank or sell drugs. Is that what you're trying to
That's
say?
not what he's saying.
That's what it sounds like.
When you have children
let me pray for your ears. How foul that spirit come out. You know, Jesus,
but when you have children,
you coddless.
when you have children that need to be fed, and you can't get a job, and say you are an upstanding citizen and you have searched for a job and you cannot find one, or they refuse to hire you because you have a felony background, what would you suggest?
I'd suggest you go down there and you sit on them steps, you call a press conference, and you hold up a job like Ted.
Your children are hungry.
On the job.
And then
Your children are hungry.
And then there's tricks that's set up in the system. Let me give you an example of a trick.
All right.
Okay, you have children and you're paying child support.
Yes.
You get behind in your child support, so you get behind in your child support, they take your driver's license
That's
away.
right.
They take your driver's license away, but yet you're trying to get to work every day.
Right.
You get pulled over and find out that you don't have a driver's license,
Right.
and you get pulled over. So then you go to jail for something like that, and then you have a second occurrence of that. You know,
who told you to lay down and have 15 different children by 14 different women?
That might not be the case.
Wait a minute. No. It's more the case than we want to acknowledge. Who told you to do that?
What are
Nobody.
you suggesting? Systematic sterilization?
Right.
Is that what you want to see
Undereducated.
happen?
What you're doing is protecting dysfunctional behavior.
No, we're not forgiving bad behavior.
We're not forgiving that.
But in all you're getting, get an understanding of what's actually occurring.
Absolutely.
Right.
And that is what's actually occurring. When you're laying
Yes.
down and you think you're the man, you can have all these babies, and then you get behind. I know one guy had 30-some babies, and then he's wondering why he can't get on the good foot.
You know,
I think
Because
that's an
that's
exception to the
crazy.
rule.
Khari,
Everybody's not
you're
having
preaching
30
just
children.
like I do. You make a good preacher.
I know I do. Don't God.
But
What needs to happen is there needs to be a revolution of thought that occurs in the homes. We have to attack this. We're attacking it from the outside in, and the poison is in within. It's in the way, you know, our children obviously are being brought up,
Yes.
because they're being brought up in a system where, you know, over 70% of our children are being born in homes without fathers.
What needs to change?
What needs to change? There needs to be a revolution in thought.
Meaning what?
We need to start revolutionizing our schools, our educational system.
What do you keep out?
Which is something I have advocated for.
a new and improved value system within our communities.
Yes,
we
absolutely.
need to rewrite the laws to
Meaning?
how we
need to
govern
turn off
ourselves.
the TV first.
Yes,
We
yes.
need to turn off the television, and we
Whoa,
need to
don't turn off Bounce. What's
Yeah.
wrong with you?
accept
That's the
Bounce.
one you can watch.
Watch Bounce.
Are you crazy? Go ahead, number 2.
And what we need to do, we need to start raising our children. We need to have the system where we used to have before. We had Big Mama or, you know, someone at home with these children. A lot of these children are raising themselves.
That's right.
And we see what is happening, and they're falling into the cracks, and they're making, it's terrible. We saw this
There you
breakdown.
go again, blaming the woman.
No.
You're blaming the woman.
No.
It's the woman's
But
fault.
we
John, isn't
saw
that what
this-
she just did?
We
She
saw
blamed
this
the woman.
breakdown
She's talking
about 2 generations ago. This started way before. This started about 2 generations ago, and now we're looking at the aftermath, and now we're all asking, what can we
She's
do to
blaming
stop
y'all. She's blaming the women. She's saying it stops the children.
it is half of our fault.
Well, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Well, I tell you what, we're going to get into that. 20 to 50 times longer. Up next on Khari, Free at Last. Welcome back to Khari, Free at Last. An African-American male is sentenced an average of 20 to 50 times longer prison term than a white male for the same drug crime. Woo! Joining me is TalkTainmentRadio.com host Earth Jallow, Donella Martin Braddox, and the Reverend John Coates. Look, man, there's no justice here. You're getting 20 to 50 times on the average longer sentence than a white male for the same crime, drug crime.
And that's a fact, because America's still racist.
President Obama was... You saying President Obama didn't straighten that out?
No, he didn't straighten that out. No, because you didn't put any pressure on President Obama. You could have influenced him, but yet you refused to. You chose not to.
Don't preach, boy.
You know. You let him off the hook.
You know?
So, Donella, 50 to 20 times long. How come ain't nobody speaking? How come Al Sharpton, none of these folks talking about this?
Well, somebody needs to, and I'll tell you what else we need to talk about. We need to talk about how the war on drugs has affected the swelling population of female prisoners. Now, since 1995, the female inmate population has doubled, more than doubled, 57% more. And 70% of those women have children under 18.
See, that was the next point, Irv. What impact does all this have on the family?
And
the child, the son, the daughter, and the wife and the grandmother and everybody. What impact is it having?
It has a devastating impact. Let's start with the children first. I go into the prisons and I speak to women and men. And the thing with the children, for the women, you're separated for one. Now the children feel alone. They're being ridiculed because now mommy's in jail, so everybody knows this. When she gets out, the bond is broken. She's been away from her child. A lot of times, you know, your child is left with a family member or maybe even foster care, and they can't get to the prisons to visit with the parent to keep that bond strong.
So it has a devastating effect on
very devastating. So now what we're trying to do out here, they have a program where it's an equestrian program in some of the prisons where the women are taught, you know, with the horses, how to be gentle, how to reconnect. We're also putting that together here on the outside for the children, so that when she is released, or the mother or the father is released, that the healthy relationship for that parent and that child can still be there.
20 to 50 times longer, Reverend Coach. That is worse than the slave state.
That's worse than any country in the world. In the world.
Well, the U.S. has a higher incarceration rate than China, Russia, or Iran.
Yes. In fact, it's a business. It's the prison industrial complex, which we begin a third-grade tracking system to determine how our children are doing by the time they reach third grade, in order to determine how many prison cells and beds will be needed 20, 30 years afterwards.
Please let me just add that new number, it used to be third grade. It has now been lowered to the first grade. So if your child cannot read by the time they're in the first grade, they're on the track to the prison system.
You know something? The more I think about this, the more it sounds like a Holocaust.
Yeah.
I mean, this is frightening to me. How do we turn this around? I mean, look, when you go out there and you commit a crime, you mean to tell me you don't know that you're going to get more time than a white male or Latino male or somebody else?
But it's the chance they're willing to
take. You don't know that?
It's become a rite of passage. Unfortunately, in our communities, it's become something that is quite normal.
So the rappers get out and tell you to go to prison, but they ain't going nowhere.
Well, if you want,
in fact, they don't even want to live among you. They go out and buy a house in the exurbs.
If you want a real action plan, now, yes, we can look from within. And yes, I'm grateful for the Innocence Projects and organizations.
So how do we turn it around?
The way we turn it around is that sentencing is imposed by judges. Judges are elected to office. That's the majority of judges, with the exception of federal judges. They're elected to office. We can choose who we support or who we don't support. It's important that a judge, when seeking office, that they support alternative sentencing programs.
Look,
that's a reality. You go to court, you're sentenced by a judge.
But they're going to view it from a racial standpoint, and these numbers are obvious that it's very racial.
Right.
So how do we stop knuckleheads from doing it in the first place, Donella? That's the key.
The key.
Stay out of the system.
The key, and this may sound radical, but the key is, and it starts with the women. We're the ones who are raising the babies. And what we need to do is start in the beginning. Our children need more nurturing.
Are you saying that the women have failed us?
From the womb.
You know what?
Wait a minute, I asked you a question. Are you saying the women have failed us?
Because they don't know. We need to go back to the practices that you see in Africa and Asia, where their children are born with higher IQs, their children have higher concentration powers, more self-discipline, more self-restraint.
Born with higher IQ?
Yes.
What do you mean born with? How are you going to be born with a higher IQ?
If you are a teenage mother and you are pregnant, your baby, and you've got all this stresses and trauma, your baby's brain is in trauma. Your baby's brain is developing in trauma. So the neurons and the pathways that are being created in the brain start to malfunction even in the womb.
In the womb. It has to start from the womb.
So when we have all of these cases of ADHD in our children, oppositional defiance disorder and all of that. Yes, a lot of them are environmental, but a lot of them have become chemical and organic.
Wow. So guess what? Your baby can't read because it was, traumatized while it was inside.
Because you're putting all that junk in your system.
And not even just putting the junk in, but when I'm telling you that it starts from the womb, it starts from before we get pregnant. Most of us is like, oops, we're pregnant. No, you have to clean the toxins out before you decide to house another human being for 9 months. All that anxiety, that stress, that depression is going right to that child.
That marijuana?
Right to the child.
Oh, and
the cigarette smoke, right to the child.
The youth, which now...
Wait a minute now, what effect does marijuana have on a woman,
while she's pregnant?
Yeah.
The thing about it, they don't even know. They don't even know.
Yeah.
What do we see in our communities? We see a lot of low birth rate babies. We see a lot of babies who don't respond to stimuli. We see a lot of babies who are developmentally delayed. They have not done studies to show the effects of marijuana on babies.
Just talk about the cigarette smoke.
Is this genocide, Reverend Coates?
Oh, I believe it's menticide and it's genocide. Most definitely. And it's time
Are we that backwards?
Well, we're
Oh,
docile.
that's scary.
We've been living outside of our culture.
A new racial caste system up next on Khari, Free at Last. Welcome back to Khari, Free at Last. The war on drugs has created a new racial caste system, which has crippled the ability of far too many black men to vote, get jobs, marry, and essentially do anything but spend their lives going in and out of jails. Joining me is TalkTainmentRadio.com host Earth Jallow, Donella Martin Braddix, and the Reverend John Coates. We got a whole new racial caste system here. Not that some people say not that it went anywhere, but now you got black men who are we have high rates of recidivism.
Oh, yeah.
They come out for a while and they go right back. Reverend Coates, why?
And when they come out, that is when you're labeled. When you're in jail, you're in jail. But when you're out of jail, then that's when the caste system goes into place, because you have those that have arrest records. Then you have those that have the label felony on them. Then you have those that have whatever other label that may be on your record. They may have you classified if you were brought up in foster care or within the system. There's so many levels of, there's credit, classifications. We already have, and we're living within a caste system presently.
Donella, a lot of women are kind of desperate as a result of the condition today. Should they marry men who have just come out of prison, or should they step away from those kind of relationships and look elsewhere to build?
Wow.
I don't think she was ready for that.
No, it doesn't matter. She got it.
You know what I think women have to be very, very careful about starting a relationship with a man who is out of prison or in prison.
He's a man.
Still.
What's the problem?
Yes, because, the thing about it is in order to make a relationship work, people have to have qualities that are good for relationships. You have to have a certain amount of character, moral fiber.
Oh, you're just sliding.
Well, she didn't go where I thought she was going to go.
She's going all over.
Where I thought she was going to go.
Where'd you think she was going to go?
I thought she was going to question a brother's sexuality.
I'm going there.
And is that a problem?
Yes.
Well, I believe it is.
Why?
Well, first of all, you might have gotten accustomed to something when you were incarcerated. Now you come out, and you may have developed a taste for...
A
different kind of experience.
A different type of experience.
I won't go there. Earth, you have long said that you wouldn't do it. Why?
I would never do it.
Why?
Because it's not for me, for number one. Number two, I work and go in and I speak to these brothers in prisons, and I develop relationships relationships with them where they tell me exactly what's going on. And down low brothers are all over the prison.
That's part of the caste system, though, Reverend Coates.
No,
that's
it's not.
part of the problem.
That's a fact.
No,
When we got HIV,
no, it is not. That's something we
women.
need to understand within our community, that a woman that thinks that she is marrying a straight man or entering into a relationship with a heterosexual, but yet she discovers something different along the way, and maybe after it's too late, maybe after she has contracted a venereal disease or HIV, you know, that's too late. We need to find out
and we're
ahead
still on
of
the
time.
rise for that. Black women are still in the number one position for that, and I truly believe it is because so many men go to prison, and when they come out, they don't reveal
So
that,
what
that
happens
part of
is
them.
all their lives, once they go to prison, they can never shake it. So all their lives, like Michelle Alexander and other people have said, they stay in a racial caste system at all levels.
And that's
can't
because
find jobs, can't get married, question their sexuality.
I disagree with that.
I disagree
with that.
There's very little rehabilitation that takes place.
There's none.
What we need is rehabilitation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But I disagree with that. Actually, what I've seen is that black men who have been incarcerated, they usually can go out, and there's usually women who are welcoming them into their homes with their children.
Yes.
Okay?
Is that wrong?
Yes.
I don't think it's right or wrong. I think that women need to be more cautious.
Well, then that
Women
answer
need to be more. I don't believe you should judge someone just because they've been to prison. I don't agree with that. And I also don't agree that just because a man has been in prison, he's more likely a down low brother than somebody who's living on the street. I don't think so.
That's what Reverend
I know
Coates said.
guys who have never been to prison who are down low.
And that's her final word. Give me the final word on this.
Yet and still, I really believe that we need to, as women, we need to be more cautious.
Meaning?
Meaning that we need to do background checks. It's available to you.
Okay.
So
thanks to TalkTainmentRadio.com host Earth Jallow, Donatella Martin Braddix, and the Reverend John Coates. And thank you for watching Khari, Free at Last.